Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the next call block here, where we're talking about some deep dives into what it takes for you to run your therapy practice. And today, specifically, maybe some mindset tips and some function tips on what it's going to take for you to grow your therapy practice if it's stuck, if it's not going where you want it to go, or for you to just go the distance, to have that first 10K month, to have that first 30K month, to have that first 100K month for your business.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. I made a pretty huge post earlier today, and it had a lot to do with mindset. And I think a lot of the time I don't know if it's confusion. I don't know if it's like maybe it's like just not remembering or not having the focus on this topic, but mindset is like paramount to how you show up for your day-to-day life. It's paramount for how you're showing up in general as a practice owner. It's paramount how you're showing up as a clinician. I mean, mindset is like 80 to 90% of what needs to happen. 80 to 90% of like the factor that's going to bring you through the good, the bad, and the ugly times, really. And so shedding a little bit of light on what it takes to show up, what it takes to actually grow or move into that spot that you want to move into. And I think this is different based on where you're at in your practice and your goals. But Josh, like when you think about showing up for your clients, showing up with energy on your calls, when you think about showing up after you had a really bad call or after you had a really good call, what's kind of like the thing that's there for you? Like what is the saving grace for you? How do you get mentally prepped? It's a big question, but might be a good spot to start.
Yeah, it is a great question. And I think it all comes down to energy for me. There is a mindset component and that produces energy. But at the end of the day, your work as a therapist and your work as a business owner is constantly pushing energy into other people's lives or into your business. So you're showing up in a one-on-one session, you are pouring out energy to be present with them and help them work through their issues. Same with pouring out energy whenever you're working with a clinician and how to help them be a better employee of yours, or just your business, which is kind of a living organism that's a part of you and separate from you. You're injecting energy, time, and process. So if you aren't creating enough energy in your life, and a lot of that comes with how you think and how you show up, you're just not going to have enough of it. But specifically on a mindset level, there's two things that I think about with the way that you asked that question. Number one is every action or every block is a thing in and of itself. So one of my calls, separate from the next hour, have no weight. And this is something that I learned as a sales rep, is when you are calling a bunch of people, and I've like made thousands of phone calls in like a single afternoon, because you're just plowing through, and there's like cold caller days in another industry, right? Someone yells and screams at you and swears you out for calling them, right? Like the next person you need to be as sweet as honey to, right? And so this switch of like, you have a really heavy, weighty session. Well, going directly into an employee meeting or producing some content for your therapy practice requires quick transitions, and you have to allow yourself to really take the ups and be there and the downs and be there, and not stay down when you need to go up and not be up when you need to come back down. And if you don't allow the momentum and the movement of that to happen, then you will get stuck at one level, most likely in the negative level of that previous call or that previous hard session or that previous client who just quit or didn't pay their bill or whatever it is. And you won't be as available for that next thing. And I'll leave it at that. I know I said two things, but I think that was a big chunk right there.
Yeah, so sounds like energy and transitions. And I think we can it's crazy. Like I feel like so many topics you can like hover over them with a magnifying glass, and it's like something that's just like one word can be like magnified like crazy, and there's so much in energy, or there's so much in like transition, like that one word. It's like you can just keep going down and deeper in it. And it's like, what is energy? And then that opens up a whole other conversation. That opens up a whole other conversation.
Very like poppy, like, you know, just feel good. Like it can mean nothing. Like, yeah, you can say the word energy and it can mean everything and it can mean nothing depending on what you kind of imply in this broad spectrum word. And I think to maybe clarify it, like Attilio, you've been building businesses and you've done the process of starting and stopping, building and getting like rid of, and, you know, across the board tons of times. What has kept you in those moments where you're trying to build momentum and show up with energy? Like, what keeps you driving through that process every single time you're in that building phase?
I think I'm not talented with a lot of things. I have to learn a lot. I have to really apply myself a lot, and I have to stay really, really curious. And I think that those are probably my biggest strengths. Like honestly, talking about the point or the post that I made before, I think the biggest strength, or maybe the largest talent that I have, is just sheer unrelenting grit. Because like you find yourself doing things that you don't like doing, period. Like there's no way that you like doing everything inside of your practice. It doesn't happen. No one likes every little bit of running their private practice. If you do, raise your hand, because I want to know who you are. I want to shake your hand. So I think ultimately, like for me, if you're asking me, it's sheer unrelenting grit, and it's because I have a vision and passion that just is like, I don't know what it is or what's wrong with me. Maybe it's a problem. Maybe I have a problem. Maybe this is not good. Maybe there's a negative thing, but
there's enough therapists to listen to this to call you out if you know there's something that needs to happen.
Yeah, I just like, not that I won't let things go, but it's hard for me to really let something go. And I'm gonna keep like chipping away at the wall when I see the wall in front of me, rather than try to like circle around somewhere else. And I used to be bad and I used to circle around, but now I've learned to focus my energy in a different way.
Yeah.
So really,
and I think picking into that, like there's a grit, there's a hunger that comes for like building that business, solving that problem, seeing the progress you need to have that you're just not willing to let go of until you make the progress. And that can be really healthy, because that means you stick with it long enough to see the result.
Yeah, I think something that's really interesting too is like, I mentioned that grit might be like one of my only talents. But to be honest, I don't think that it can't be learned. I don't think that it's like, hey, Attilio, you're talented with something, but I don't think that someone else couldn't like apply themselves in the same way, or couldn't like learn to acquire the skill. Because really, I just think it's kind of a skill at some capacity. Like Josh, I know you have been building grit like crazy, and you talk a lot about stamina, especially like in the sales process. It's like it requires stamina. Like you need it's a constant output of energy. And I think maybe that's kind of how grit is kind of paired in this. But
grit is like going for a run for the very first time and continuing to go running until it becomes easy. Stamina is what gets developed by being a runner for years and years and slowly increasing your mileage, right? So grit is what you need to just make it functional, to just like, wow, I can finally run the first mile, and it took me 3, 5, 10, 20 tries before I didn't have to walk part of that mile, right? And then stamina comes from like, oh, now I can run the mile in 15 minutes. Now I can run the mile in 10 minutes. Now I can run the mile in 6 minutes. It's the same process, but faster or more present.
Yeah, I like that. I, you know, between energy output, between grit, between stamina, um, I think there's like one component, and you hear a lot of people like, you got to work hard, right? It's just like hustling. We're hustling, we're working. It's putting the time in, putting the energy necessary in to see the output that you want. But I think there's like one enormous thing that not a lot of people talk about, and I think it's just like in general having the knowledge, like having the wherewithal, having the direction, from either someone who's a predecessor or someone who has like information that you just don't have. So like seeking the knowledge, seeking the information, because for example, for me, I could chip at a wall for 365 days and I could still be chipping away at a wall. But without my business coaches, without the people that I surround myself with, I'll be chipping at the wall in a wrong spot. And and it's definitely one of my weaknesses, that I can just like tunnel vision in and just like do the thing. But sometimes I need to be reminded to zoom out, and then all of a sudden I see all the space and I'm like, oh my God, there actually was a better spot in the wall, or actually there was a doorway already and I just needed to walk through that doorway instead of chipping away through the wall.
And I think that's actually an essential skill that you have to have as a business owner, because there is this sort of seesaw back and forth process where, you know, it's the same for swimming. Like you push down and you take as many strokes as you can with the breath of air that you have, but you have to come back up and look at everything. And same as a business owner is, you have to dig deep and actually get something done and go one at a time and start to stack momentum and show up for your business consistently and do the hard work. But then you also have to pull out and look at everything and make sure, especially if what you think you're doing isn't working, take a broader view, typically with the help of coaches and the wisdom of people that have done it before you, to make sure that you're continuing to chip at the correct wall and push through the correct things.
Yeah, I really like that metaphor, the swimming. It's like come up for air, right? So you can't forget to come up for air. And I think coming up for air means seeking knowledge, working on your mindset. One of my mentors, oh man, it must have been 6 months or a year ago. He had brought something up, and and what he said was, if you don't think you need to work on your mindset, you're probably the person who needs to work on the mindset the most. And so that's like saying the person who doesn't think they need to come up for air is the person who needs to come up for air probably the most, right? And that it's so important to think about that. What's the Abraham Lincoln? I think Abraham Lincoln had one where it's like, or maybe not Abraham Lincoln, it was like a lumberjack, but like if you have 10 hours to chop down a tree and you spend 6 hours sharpening your axe, it's like you'll cut down way more trees than the person who just never sharpened their axe. And that's like sharpening it with knowledge, right?
And I think of a couple of things depending on the stage of business that you're in. And if you're just starting, that's one of the most difficult but also exciting places to be in. You have the least amount of knowledge, right? But you probably have the biggest energy surge and why. Like you're just quitting your full-time job, or you're just launching your private practice for the first time, and you have everything going for you, because maybe nothing's gone wrong yet, or not a lot has gone wrong yet, and you're just figuring out the knowledge pieces initially. Like your number one priority is, what I don't know what I don't know. Let's consume knowledge and figure it out and just start doing stuff, right? But it doesn't take long to feel overwhelmed, feel like I don't deserve this, feel like I shouldn't charge what I want to charge. Oh, I only have a couple clients. Maybe I need to like drop my fees. Oh, I'm trying this like new software, this new ad campaign, or this new referral source, and I'm not getting the results that I want. Maybe I should quit. And suddenly there kind of comes all of this stuff into the screaming into the picture that slowed down the energy output and the consistency that you had a month ago, 3 months ago, 12 months ago, when you had a clean slate. So as someone's feeling all of that come in, what are some of the pillar mindsets that can keep that person pushing through all of those impeding thoughts and feelings and what maybe feels like failures?
Yeah. So, um, and I want to use this I want to use this source because I think it's so important to have a source in this type of conversation. So I'm pulling this information from Layla Hormozi, who's she operates and runs tons of businesses. She usually runs and helps people in like the $3 to $6 million range, but she has started and launched several businesses herself, and she's operated at $100 million annual level. She's enormous, and her number one reasons for people failing under 7 figures. So number one reason someone fails under $1 million in annual revenue. That means you, solo practitioner that's watching this. That means the person who has 6 clinicians and is at 600,000, or I'm sorry, 600,000, but not a million yet, right? So this is for this big grouping of therapists that have not hit $1 million yet. And the 3 biggest reasons that she says someone will fail is they can't handle stress well, they're too inexperienced, or they have a lack of sales aptitude. And so between those, not knowing is knowledge. Low stress is like low stress, low threshold for stress is like mindset and how you can handle adversity. And then the other thing is sales. It's like it's a skill / activities that you're actually doing. And so the big one is the threshold for stress. So if we go back to your question, when it comes to mindset, that's a really big one. So how are we handling our low threshold for stress? And I think it's just one, being educated on what's out there, so that way we don't know what we don't know. And then 2, focus on our mindset so that way we can effectively navigate around stressful or changing situations, which happen regularly when you're starting a business. Things change constantly until you really figure something out.
Yeah. When you want to build a private practice for a lot of really inherent good goals, freedom, income, some of those things, but the main driving factor isn't I love to build businesses. And maybe that's something that Attilio and I have a little bit in terms of advantage is there's this core component of us, the entrepreneurial component, where it's not just a creative act or a means to an end to buy back freedom or time or income, but like I just love like a lot of the aspects of building the businesses. And that's a little bit more how I'm wired and like why we're in this space. And in some ways why we make good coaches and marketers and practice builders. But if you don't have that internal mechanism, then especially stressors that impose upon you are going to be that much more volatile because you didn't sign up for that, right? Like I didn't sign up for the roller coaster of a business. I signed up for freedom. I signed up for income and these other things. But a lot of times that roller coaster comes in initially until you can kind of transcend that. I think of, yeah, and stress can just look like so many different things, personal, professional, clients leaving, clients starting. And all of those are clues for like traits that you have to level up on. And as a therapist, you have all of the essential tools at your disposal on a mindset level to like coach yourself through the stress engagement process to provide holistic thought and feeling. And I think sometimes people don't slow down well enough and ask the question, what would I tell myself in this scenario? Like as an outside person looking in, and this is the number one tip that I have for anyone listening here. If you're struggling with overwhelm or overstress or anything in the mindset category, like what is the truth? And more than anything, ask yourself like, oh, if like I was my therapist or I was my coach right now, what would I tell myself to do? and honestly answer that question, because you probably have a really good answer. You just need to slow down and actually like apply it and let that hit you.
Yeah, that like, are you introspective enough, and are you willing and able to take your own medicine that you would give?
And like that's your guys' biggest advantage as therapists and counselors, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't have the emotional intelligence and the therapeutic skill sets that you have, that that you apply with your clients day in and day out. And that can literally be your greatest asset when you turn that mechanism on for yourself and use it just to always propel you out of the muck and the mire. And I don't see counselors do that enough. And the other way is you get into a community that will do that for you. So for instance, like if you were on one of our daily calls, Attilio and I are the ones helping you pull out of whatever circumstance and stress that you're in. And you can do that in cohort groups. You can do that with a business partner. Like since Attilio and I are working together as good business partners, we probably like tailspin and a lot less, or get overwhelmed a lot less, or get burdened way less because of that ebb and flow of working with a partner that keeps you sane.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that kind of comes down to like the community, or like who you surround yourself with. And that can be like, are you surrounding yourself with mentors or people that are helping you like move in a direction that you want to move, or like in a healthy direction, or are you surrounding yourself with uh, people that are removing energy from you, or people who are not um, able to maybe like help provide additional information, or help you overcome those stresses, or help you take a step back sometimes, or help you lean in when you need to lean in. It's kind of really interesting too. I think sometimes the best coaches are just asking the right questions, or good questions to have you. Most of the time, your answers are already inside of you, and so the questions just need to be asked, so that way you can get some clarity on the direction you should be taking. And so, like the community and the people that you're with, if you're listening in, they should be also asking you some great questions. Not just good questions, great questions. So I don't know. I feel like oftentimes, even in conversations with like you, Joshua, we'll just be going back and forth. We'll be like brainstorming. We have a pretty safe environment between the two of us, so we're just kind of like brainstorming, and then we'll like bring it all together, and then somehow we tie it all together, and it ends up working awesome. And so sometimes you just need like that extra, like it's the contraction and the extraction. I don't know what the opposite of contraction is. But really like having the two dynamics available, it's the risk and the safety. It's the positives and the negatives that help you find that middle road that really allow you to get exactly where you need to go. The pushing the left and the right in the kayak, so that way you end up moving forward.
Yeah. I think of so many circumstances where either I just needed to be the one to tell it to myself, I needed to hear it from you, I needed to hear it from like a coach or a mentor or like a peer outside of it. And if you surround yourself with the right people to make those circumstances available for yourself, your level of success and sanity. Because being on an island as you build your business is the worst thing you can do, because there's nothing to help you carry or hold that stress. And kind of speaking from experience, if you have a partner that isn't like, I don't want to say not on board, but like not doing the day-to-day business stuff with you, right? Or you have a significant other, I think I used the word partner, and if you have a significant other that isn't doing the day-to-day business stuff with you, they're probably not going to be the source of helping you right the situation, which is why it's even more important for you to be like in a cohort with other business owners. It's why you're in this Facebook group and some of those things, because they're going to help you reprioritize and push through the noise that's currently in your head, keeping you from being successful.
Let's I want to dial this really quick into like, I know we talked 7 figures, but I want to like really reel this back into like, I'm just starting my business today. What are like the mindset things that I need to know? Like maybe like top 2 to 5 things that like would maybe set myself up for vastly larger success than if I just didn't know them. And I don't know if you have.
The number one thing you need to do is know your why separate from it client impact. Why are you running this business? What is the most important reason that you need to be successful in this business, other than I'm going to have more impact in my clients' lives? Because you can have that impact working for someone else. Maybe not as much, but like you need a why for doing all of this central. And if you're looking to really drill it in, you ask why, you write a bunch of stuff down, you get happy with it, and then you ask why again. And you just keep mining it 3 or 4 times with the why question. And this is like a Simon Sinek, like start with why concept. That's going to be the pillar for your mindset. And you have to remind yourself of why you're doing it anytime you come up against adversity.
Yeah, and just to be clear, asking why again, you're asking it on like the next tier, right? So you just answered, why do I want to do this? Well, it's because I want time and freedom. Well, why do you want time and freedom? Because now I have a family and I need to provide more for my family and I want to be there for my family. Okay, well, why is that? Because fundamentally, family is a core pillar in my life and I love the relationship with my family. It makes me feel the best in my life. Well, why? So like asking on that layer, you're not asking why and trying to figure out something else.
Because instead of saying, I'm building this business so can I have freedom, you're saying, I'm building this business because it checks all of the core fundamental values for why I exist on this earth. And unless you properly draw that thread, it's not going to be in your consciousness. And you need to write it down and you need to have it on a sticky note in your different places until it's so imbued in you that like it is literally driving your everyday action. And that's like, that is imbued in me. Like I've done that work over and over again, and you have to like fine tune it at different points, but that's what propels me. So like like showing up with energy comes from the deepest source of why it's important. And I no longer have to think about invoking that when I show up to a call because it's at my tip whenever I want.
Love that.
Beyond starting with why, which is very like existential, pragmatically, you need to drill it down to one big activity. So we were talking to a practice owner earlier today, and the bigger activity that supporting subtasks can fall into, the more clear and quickly that you will move. So for this particular practice owner, it was you will accomplish all of the goals you want if you can just hire 8 clinicians. It's a very reasonable pillar thing, and there are a million steps to accomplish that. Where are they going to come from? How am I going to do that? How am I going to onboard them? How am I going to fill them out? Like, you will just figure all of that stuff out naturally if you make that pillar central goal big enough for you. So for you, if you're just starting out, it can be something like, I need 20 clients. And if you show up every day working backwards from that number, everything else will take care of itself and you won't get bogged down. Is this helping me get 20 clients? No, it's not fast enough. No, this seems like a distraction. No, this will only help 10 months from now, whatever it is, right? And maybe you have a couple other suggested similar like big goals when someone's in that building phase that they can write down that all the supporting activities would follow.
Yeah, I want to add, because that's such a good one to have that one thing, but you have to make sure you can't get lost on that one thing, because I think some people will say, my one thing right now is to build a website. And that's not big enough. That's not big enough, because what's going to happen is you're going to get lost on the website. Your one thing will become the website until it's complete. But a website is just a task. A website is just a tool in the shuffle of something much larger. And so you should not be able to say, like, is there something bigger than this as far as my goals? With a website, you're probably like, well, I need clients. Well, I want to show my rate. Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? And you're going to come down to this point where you're like, it's because I need 20 clients. It's because without 20 clients in 2 months, my water goes out. I can't pay my electric bill. And so you need to be able to like dial this way far out until you find the actual root goal. Otherwise, you will literally get lost on your subtasks. You will literally get lost on your subtasks. And if you're watching this live, I want you to say, am I lost on my subtasks, like out loud to yourself right now? Because your one goal has to be so representative of the actual event that needs to happen that all the subtasks start to become no-brainers. It literally starts to become a no-brainer. And it's crazy how once you recognize your subtasks, how you start realizing as soon as you start hitting these big goals, that the faster you just knock out these subtasks, the faster you can see if they're working, the faster you can see if it's going to get you to that goal. Otherwise, that's the one part that you need to revise. And so it should fuel you to take action. It should fuel you to move quicker. It should fuel you to put things out, confirm, like get feedback and confirm that it's moving you towards your one big goal. And then you can circle back and say, that wasn't it, boom, and just cross it off the list. Or, wow, that has some potential to it. It's starting to get a little bit of attention. It's starting to work its way through, but we're still just not there yet. Maybe I need to improve it and circle that. And so hopefully that helps clarify, like you need to be able to zoom so far out on this one thing that the subtasks are mega clear. And maybe there's 2 to 5 subtasks, or sometimes even just one subtask that's just the critical thing.
Yeah. And I think right now, like both you and I have, like, I have my 2 giant goals, and there are a million subtasks under them at the moment. But my 2 giant goals, one is very number driven in terms of like quantity of people we talk to, and the other one is very content driven in terms of just showing up consistently in the content production side of things. And like, I know if I make content and I generate conversations, everything else will follow, and I don't think about it. And for a counselor who's just starting out, maybe it's saying like 6K a month, whatever I need to do to like hit that, or 10K a month. But then to kind of play devil's advocate on it, if you treat subtasks and sub goals that aren't the main theme with the same emotional weight as just everything else, and you don't follow through with those, you create a cycle of distrust with yourself, and that breaks momentum. So if you make building a website the be all end all for your success, and it takes a lot longer, or it doesn't produce the result that you want, that's almost a distrustful process for yourself. So if you're looking to gain momentum quickly, and you're looking to trust yourself and become more effective at just crossing things out, getting rid of the noise, and just plowing through subtasks to hit your major goal, you have to do it in an incremental way. So you can trust yourself that if I put something on my to-do list, or if I put something on my priority list, it will actually get done. And if you set a giant goal month over month, I'm going to make $1 million this month, right? Like, and you don't hit it, well, you trust yourself a little bit less.
So you've never been there before. You have to be realistic with it too, right? So
yeah. And so I think there is a little bit of finagling of like, you have to have a big goal, but there is a little bit of a difference between an outcome oriented goal. And I've personally stopped typically making outcome oriented goals of they're good roadmap of what I'm trying to accomplish, of we want 20,000 users on our software, right? Like that's great, but actually the central goal or task that I need to zero in on is showing up daily for content or generating blank, blank, and blank. And so for you guys who are trying to build your business for the first time, make goals. If like outcome oriented goals or number oriented goals seem to fail you, you have to make other pillar goals instead.
Yeah. Oh man, I forget the actual term for that. Maybe if I remember it, I'll make a post about it. There's an actual like word for the different types of goals. Like one is the outcome of certain events, whereas this other term is the outcome of activities. So that way you directly control the outcomes, right? So we want to put as much control into our hands as possible, and especially starting a business for the first time, it's so easy to like rely on things that aren't exactly in our control. But if you create goals, if you create these subtasks or like items beneath your actual goal, beneath your one thing, that's like the activity that I have to do, the work that I have to do, the information that I have to learn. Those are the types of goals. Those are the types of subtasks that one are easy to check off if you're just showing up. Like literally just showing up, if you have them written down, is oftentimes enough to get the activity done. And so if you're showing up and you're doing the activity, eventually, you know, not respective to time or the market, eventually you'll hit your goal. Because there's variables, obviously, like time. Things take time, but sometimes things happen quick. Sometimes things happen a long time. Just like the market, sometimes it likes what you have. Sometimes it doesn't like what you have. And so not with, not respected to those items, you can put as much control into your hands as possible. And so if that's like, I need to send 100 emails today, send 100 emails. Or if that's like, I need to give out 50 business cards, give out 50 business cards. Or if that's like, I need to sign up for 10 listing sites, sign up for 10 listing sites, or get credentialed, or get, put on an insurance panel, get put on an insurance panel.
And those are all great activities that generate referrals, but we hear all the time, oh, I just need to generate more referrals, and you do all these activities, and that's great, but it will be even more effective if you're like, my main activity is like, my main goal is I need 15 referrals on a monthly basis. And then your sub activities fill in of like, oh, wow, these business cards, these networking, these panels or whatever, like are slowly all these little subtasks that may allow you to show up consistently with 10 to 15 referrals or 30 to 40 referrals on a monthly basis. I still think the winner of this conversation is asking yourself out loud right now, am I getting lost in subtasks?
Yeah. Are you? And I want people to say it out loud. It's crazy. I'm maybe a little bit witchy when it comes to this. Usually I'm not, but like sometimes saying things like if you like Harry Potter or something, or not, right? Like this is like casting a spell, right? You're actually saying something. And once you say something, it starts moving you in the direction of that reality. And so it's very powerful if you haven't said something out loud to yourself, or maybe you've thought of it, but you haven't quite said it just yet. So saying something sometimes is all it takes. And if you're, and it's crazy, sometimes like the first time you do this, you're like really nervous to say it because you're like afraid for yourself and you're like in your room by yourself, but you haven't like said something out loud. And it's scary sometimes, but it's incredible how powerful it is when you just take take a shot at it. Sometimes it's scary, but just try it. And then the next step is to tell it to someone else. And then the next step is to tell it to someone. So tell it to a stranger first, because you don't know a stranger, it's easy, but then tell it to someone that you really know, someone that you care about, maybe, depending on the degrees of difficulties that you have. And so sometimes just putting that information out there out loud is a big step in the right direction.
Yeah. 100%. Well, as we wrap this up, we go live several times a week inside of our Facebook group. So if you're not already watching those or joining those, definitely check those out. We go into more tactical stuff on operations and on software usage in order to scale your practice to 5, 10, $30,000, $80,000 plus a month for that 7-figure rate. And then we also do more mindset related stuff of the mindset, the goal setting, the actions you should be taking in order to really propel your practice forward. And then we really dig into a lot of that stuff inside of our monthly membership for all the users who are using some of the tools we provide to try and make their practice successful. So we'll catch you guys next time. And